This is Anchored and Devoted. I am Dave Joseph, and that is my brother Jeremy over there.
Hello.
We love the same God, our Heavenly Father, and we do love you. And so we're willing to partner with you in thinking through tough things as well as simple things every believer should know. This is Anchored and Devoted. Making sure you're the right podcast. How you doing, dude?
I'm good. Just a note to our listener, if this is not the right podcast, keep on listening. Maybe it'll become the right podcast. Maybe this is the right podcast accidentally.
Well, I was going to tell them about Daily Games, too. So Daily Games is coming up. That could be. So there you go.
Unless we're wrong, unless something happens between now and when we actually start producing Daily Games.
Like the Rapture, then don't go.
The Rapture, something else. Who knows?
So there you go. But you can listen to old episodes, too. So there you go. Anyway, today we're talking about the green or not the green.
That's the question. Whether 'tis better to till the soil by sweat of thine hands and taste the fruit of thy bounty.
Well, anyway,
I never read Shakespeare.
I put this topic before you.
Obvious.
Because I think it is important to discuss. At least when things seem to be in a more pleasanter place. I mean, just as a context, Israel seems to be attacking everyone, and the U.S. is trying to keep things at bay in the Middle East right now. There are a number of wars going on in Africa that just are so low because there are hurricanes and tornadoes and everything else in the States. Mm-hmm. There's rumors of new germs for the fall and things to be feared. There's sick children sharing germs with everybody and plenty of life to be led. And so I will say that typically when things get to a nice space, we often talk about the green or not the green as far as, what is the balance that we see in the beginning of the Bible when Jesus commissioned Adam and Eve to, yes, be fruitful and not multiply, not talking about that one. Well, it's kind of in the conversation, but also just, having dominion over the earth. And what does that look like when you have one side of the world that is one group in the world, not one side, one group in the world that is adamant on demolishing all cars right now and
except their own,
removing all airplanes from the sky and
except their own.
See, we're already having too much fun now. And then there's the other side, which is bigger, burn it, use it. It's our resource. It's ours. Leave me alone.
That was yours. Now it's mine.
Exactly. Move if you don't want to use it. We'll show you how to do it.
That's right.
So there's yes, I'm being horrible. And I don't mind because this is fun. This is a conversation with you. We love you, Texas. I mean, believers.
I do. Done a lot of great things for us.
Yeah. So
sometimes been big-headed.
What are your thoughts, Jer? Now that I've made a good mess of this to get us started. What are your thoughts? And we only have a limited amount of time to mess it up more.
I take this straight down to theology. Okay. God's the creator. And what that means is what he creates, he called good. So what he has created is by definition good because he called it so. It's also good definitionally because he made it, and he only makes things that are good. We look and see in scripture that as the creator, Paul, when he talks about the potter, the maker, he has the right to determine how to use the things that he creates. Even things that are good, he has the right to use them for things that we would say, that's not a very good use of that thing. That's not honoring to that thing that you used. And he says, yeah, but it's mine. I made it. I can use it for what I want. If you want to do something different, you make something. You create a world and then you can use it how you want to. This is my world. I created it. I can determine how to use it. So there's a bit of a step off point there that I think is legitimately in God's hands. But I also look at both the beginning and the end of the story, and as you already alluded to, The injunction that God gave Adam and Eve was one for humanity and civilization, and one to society and the larger community, if you will. The humanity one was be fruitful and multiply and fill the world, and subdue it. But he placed Adam, that and subdue it is an interesting one, because that doesn't have to do with making babies. Like the first three, be fruitful and multiply and fill the world, those are all make babies, grow. And I'm going to asterisk that right now, because
a relationship with God.
he doesn't even say that, but I think that's baked in.
But I do think in our Western culture, where we're very individualistic, it's easy to read that as just go make a ton of kids and disassociate from me. There is I believe, because our God is so relational, an assumption that you will stay or desire a relationship with me because I put that in you.
Well, I agree with that, but I think it's downstream from where this conversation is. But I do think it ties back in, because
I'm adding mud. Just keep going.
The reason I was putting that asterisk in, which I'm doing with my fingers here on screen, there's the asterisk, is one of the avenues that has been taken to promote a pro-green virtue is to take an anti-human approach and say, well, the problem is humans, period.
Correct.
What's the problem with the world? Humans. We have too many people, too many babies, too many mouths, too many needs, too many desires, too many blah, blah, blah. And that's not what God said. No, God said, no, I placed you here. I created you. This is good. You as a human are very good. And what I want you to do is be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Okay, so that's its own thing. But I then have to fast forward in the story to the end of the story, where I see that God not only saves humanity from their sins, but restores and renews all of creation. In other words, when he started making this, he didn't make it saying, well, I'm going to put all these resources around the world, and I've got my pet project, which is people, and all of these resources are going to be there so that they can use them up any way they want, because my goal is just to save these people. No, his goal is to save all of it. As the creator, as the maker, as the potter, he's interested not just in the vessels, as Paul says it, that were created for honor, but also in the vessels that were created for dishonor. And somehow, in his economy, his purpose is to see all of that restored. And that tells me, as a believer, the perspective I have to approach this from is one that says, A, I'm not the one who gets to determine the value of something, God is, and B, I have to prioritize these resources in coordination with the priority that he has placed on them.
So, to steward or not to steward? I still haven't got an answer to my question there, sir. Organic or not? Like, what are we doing here? Being irritating. There you go.
Let's go with the organic one. That one's easy. Don't organic. You're paying people to lie to you.
What?
Yeah, that one was very easy. Also, don't buy the recycled stuff. You're paying people to lie to you.
Why? What? I'm trying to understand your thinking here. I'm not agreeing or disagreeing. I'm just trying to understand. If I'm to be a good steward of God's kingdom, why would I not recycle or whatever that you want to do?
Okay, so let's break that down. Because when you recycle, what are you actually doing? You're putting more pollutants into the air to put more trash into the ground in order to get a very small byproduct that's going to be reused at some point, possibly. The input into recycling in terms of energy and material is significantly greater than the output of the product.
So
that's why California right now is suing ExxonMobil out in that state.
That is a good conversation to be had. Is this is not this is not what you're saying, a desire not to reuse things. This is recognizing that the cost of doing it is more intensive than have been expressed in the past. And so things are changing as far as awareness when it comes to the lawsuit in California.
I mean, you're breaking it down, but I think that awareness has been there for decades. I don't know. I mean, we grew up in the 80s, so I think maybe in the early 80s there was this idea that, you know, all plastic and all glass and all metal and all paper can be recycled and it's all going to be reused. And by the mid 90s, I at least was aware that that was a sham. That was a marketing scheme that was known to be a fanciful fiction. So it goes back to actually what I said a minute ago, which is we have to prioritize based on what God said is important. And a part of that is we have to prioritize our time and our use of resources. That's the stewardship angle. I'm prioritizing, I'm stewarding my time. I'm stewarding the resources that are available to me. I'm stewarding the waste products that I'm producing, and I'm stewarding the energy that goes into my work that goes into making this product. Each of those have to be stewarded in a way that leads to flourishing for me and for those around me. So when you ask about recycling or organic, non-GMO, because those things have been so bastardized by organizations that are simply making money off of putting a label on something. Organic no longer means anything. Recycled, made from recycled, doesn't mean anything other than someone somewhere gets to feel good about a symbol somewhere. Doesn't mean that they've actually saved anything. It doesn't mean they've been a better steward. It doesn't mean that it's a healthier product. None of those things. Each of those things have to be determined on a case-by-case basis. I'm sorry, because the lack of headphones, I'm cutting you off, and I'm trying to not do that.
So what I'm hearing is that you're encouraging everyone to do research and to learn more about the things that they give their time to, as well as that they believe in. So whether
I think that's what stewardship is. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't define it before. So I do
agree.
I do think it is one of those things where you have, you know, taken the time to wrestle with how things are done. So do you?
Let me break it out a little bit, right? So, things that I used to recycle that I no longer recycle: glass bottles. Why? Because sand is very, very, very available, and glass is made from sand. It's a silicone compound that you heat up, you melt, you make glass. And the cost to get the sand, melt the sand, and make glass is significantly less than the cost to get used bottles, grind bottles up, remove impurities from them, remelt them, and remake them into glass. The cost benefit there is on the loss side. Now, if that were the only consideration, I'd say don't recycle glass. But there's another consideration. What's happening to all this waste glass bottle? That's a separate question. That's a question that, you know, I had a friend here at my church who's now in Iowa. He does research. First, he was doing it in batteries. Now he's doing it in plant fibers and the multiplicity of ways that plant fibers can be used, not just for clothing, but also for energy, I believe. Shout out to Luke Haverholz. Very smart and very down-to-earth guy. Great brother. Luke looks at these things and he says, but what's happening to all of these waste products? Are they going straight into a landfill? Are they breaking down and releasing harmful materials into our environment? Are they being contained? Are we creating a worse problem by not doing something, by not somehow reprocessing this waste material? That's a separate question that needs to be answered. Then you need to take at least those two ideas and balance them out to a place where we're thriving. So for me, I no longer recycle my glass bottles. I do and will continue to recycle every bit of aluminum because aluminum is extremely expensive to mine, to refine, and to process. And because aluminum is used for so many things, once it has already been pulled out of the ground and processed once, cleaning it remelting it, reprocessing it is significantly less expensive than mining it afresh. I will continue to recycle my aluminum until I know otherwise. Paper is similar. Paper can very easily be broken down and recycled. It's not used for a whole lot, but it's still beneficial. But the downside to, or rather the balance here, is I can also just take paper and throw it into my compost bin, which is its own form of recycling. So I'm not going to split hairs there. But honestly, I could take that same bit of paper, tossed on the ground, and within 3 months, it's going to have been broken down and will be almost completely biodegraded. So there's not the same kind of production waste issue between these three substances. Aluminum cans are not going to break down in the ground. Glass bottles will slowly, very slowly over time, they will break down and they'll remain glass and then chip away slowly, and you'll end up with something similar to the original silicone and silica that they were a part of. Paper will very definitely break down. Aluminum cans are just going to stay aluminum cans. So I think through each of these things and say, why am I doing this? Is it bringing the effect that is the most helpful to the total system? So
are you
bigger questions.
Are you recommending people that we use less then instead of recycling? Is that when you say you don't recycle glass bottles, are you reusing?
I do, yeah. I I don't have, actually I have one in my bathroom over here. I have a mason jar. I don't think that we have, let me think for a second. My wife has a shot glass because that's just how she rolls.
Go for it. I'm listening.
The rest of our drinking glasses in our house are either mason jars or old, already used. We've got tall glasses that were formerly peach jars, and we have shorter glasses that were like jam jars or coconut oil jars or something. But we no longer have any glass in our house that is simply for the sake of being glass. And much to my dismay, my wife does still buy disposable water bottles to keep in the house and the car, which I understand. I'm not even going to get into microplastics here because I think that's a totally different discussion, one which I'm not qualified to talk about at all. But I would much rather have either a high-grade reusable bottle to fill up and throw in the car, or a glass travel bottle that can be cleaned and reused almost indefinitely. Absolutely, I'm going to suggest that we use less, that we reuse, and that there's a third one that I can now no longer, what was it?
Is it reuse, renew, and it was recycle, wasn't it?
I'm going to say repurpose. I think there's a lot that I think we should reuse. I think we should reduce, and I think we should repurpose. There's a lot of things that there are very few things in the world, I think, my opinion here, not Bible, not scientific. I think there are very few things in the world that really require a unique tool or unique design for this particular thing. If there is that thing, that's what you need. I have my microphone here, which is a particularly unique device, going into a cable, going into what's called a cloud lifter or a dynamic booster, going into a audio interface. I could get rid of the cloud lifter. However, it's going to degrade my sound. I could use a different microphone and it would change the sound marginally. But what I can't do is get a high quality, high level sound without using this cloud lifter. And I can't simply grab like a transformer and put it in place of this cloud lifter. I have to have this cloud lifter. And it's made of aluminum, and I'm sure copper and other valuable materials. And so for this, because this is a unique device, I need to have I've determined I need to have for the purposes of being a good steward of this product I'm producing, whether it's a podcast with you and me or the podcast for Flourish Coaching. I have invested in these, and I'll have these for as long as I am doing this. And if I stop podcasting, I will sell them to someone else who can use them, because this is a resource that is limited, that is for a very specific purpose, that is necessary for the product, for the outcome. And if I no longer am going to use it, someone else should, because that is in line with what I just said. The best way to be a good steward is to reuse, repurpose, and reduce. When I no longer need it, it should no longer be here in my dresser. And my wife says amen somewhere. So my dresser is like the one place in my house where it's my junk drawer.
Gotcha. I do agree on living a simpler life. It's funny, I was talking to David in the car the other day just about how less stressful it is to have a limited closet. And how easy it is for washing as well. When a sock disappears, or I need to buy another pair or whatever, because I know how many sweaters I have, or in my case, 3. And I know how many shirts are in there and all that
I
kind
have
of stuff.
2, but I have 3 sweater vests.
There you go. And so it's at least for me, this goes to that type of simplicity where I truly trust God to be able to. He's been blessing and keeping. I expect him to do that in the future. I don't feel I need to hoard. I do understand preparing if God puts something on your heart, but I'm also believing God for who he is. He's my provider. And so that means I can live a simpler life, and a life where I can give more, a life where I can, cherish my neighbors more. I'd already told you, it's even been longer than this year, but I made a pledge to myself to try to first minimalize, and now it's trying not to buy anything new.
Okay.
And so this year, everything's been off of eBay or some other website, and it's actually been quite nice because people,
including the shoes.
Yeah,
are they working out for you?
REI has an outlet where it's brand new stuff that's been returned.
Okay.
And so I'm able to find stuff there. And eBay has the runners and walkers that are brand new as well, but they're new to me, not new as far as like I'm buying them from a store.
Right.
So they've been returned, or they were worn once or twice, that kind of thing. And yeah, it takes a little bit of work, not even a lot, because once I find a size or something I like, typically it's expensive in the store. I can find it really cheaply online, gently used. And most of the people are going, I'm pretty sure, at least the ones I'm following on eBay, just thrift stores and getting clothes that someone else has donated. So at least that's what I can tell by looking at their closets or their stores on eBay. It's like, oh, I'm pretty sure they're working a thrift store, because this is a whole bunch of different things that are just nice that have been dropped off. Which also encourages me to do the same and support missionaries in other countries by donating things and doing things. But I do think you've hit on something as far as do your homework. Don't just be a guppy and follow the wave, but really seek to learn and to understand what is involved, so that you can be genuine before God, and not just say, oh, I tried my best, I believed everyone, but I actually did my homework.
There's a verse in Proverbs that has always stood out to me, that has informed my thinking on ecology and conservation, and how we balance the rights and privileges of humans as the God-given dominion on the earth, and everything else that we have dominion of, for which we are stewards and are responsible to give an answer. And the verse, I don't remember exactly where it is, but it says that the wise man looks after the welfare of his flocks, but even the kindness of a fool is cruelty. And that contrast of the goodness being shown to the flocks, to the animals, the herds, as opposed to cruelty, helps me understand how God views the stewardship that he has placed with us for this time being. So I'll answer very simply. I am pro-green, but I'm pro-green because God is pro-green. I'm pro-human because God is pro-human. I will balance the value of a person as being greater than the value of an animal. But that doesn't diminish the value of the animal, nor does it allow me to simply write off some kind of wholesale destruction. It means I have to be wise and judicious as I look at how to best balance what the needs are for each of these areas, each of these stakeholders, if you will, knowing that it's God that I'm going to give an account to for how I've held the stewardship.
Mm-hmm. I think it's important because often when we are busy in the midst of everything in our spaces, we don't think, we just are running. And then we start to think, and you go, okay, I need to reconcile my life with my faith. And my hope in our conversation is that we encourage one another to pause and wrestle through it, just as we encourage the listener. Like it is something you can't just walk away from it. Just like you know, I've met a number of individuals who are quite privileged and tell me they don't watch the news, and I say, well, that's great. You can only do that because you have no kids and you work from home and you make a ton of money, so you don't have to worry about traffic and other stuff, whereas everyone else does. And for the sake of the gospel, I really think you should pay attention to the world around you so that you can engage with your neighbor and love them well and serve them well. It's not always about you. And the same is true when it comes to this topic.
It is.
It really is about our God. It really is about loving our neighbors well. It really is about serving them and pointing them back to Christ. And thank you for listening to our weird conversation. We're two weird guys who love to have fun and celebrate our Christ. And we hope you will celebrate him and go get in the Word, go do your research. Again, don't just follow the herd, but think. God's freed you to do that. So take advantage of it. We love you. I look forward to being in your ear next time. This is Anchored and Devoted.
Bye-bye.